enormous lessons to be learned from this pandemic. It's important that we not allow those lessons to be lost in time. They will be relevant, unfortunately, again in the future.
You're beautiful, handsome, and smart. You're never giving up. You're never giving in. You have kept the faith. You have kept your eyes on the prize. Now, it's not the time to give up, but to stand up, to speak up, and speak out, and get in the way, getting good trouble, necessary trouble.
I'm honored to join with the National AIDS Memorial and all of you gathered for a day of remembrance, resolve, and recommitment. This year marks 30 years since work began on the AIDS Memorial Grove in Golden Gate Park, started by a small group of San Franciscans looking for a way to honor those lost to the AIDS epidemic and help their loved ones find healing. In the 3 decades since, each year on December 1st, communities and people from around the world gather to honor those we've lost, more than 700,000 here in the U.S. alone, who died from this terrible disease. 40 years later, we're still fighting to end the epidemic. We can see the horizon and find a cure, but we know much more still needs to be done to reach that goal. There is hope, and we're going to get there. Today, you'll hear from leaders, young and old, who are on the front lines together. The scientists, researchers, healthcare workers, activists, and policymakers. They've been with us through COVID-19, and they're working hard during this critical moment in our history, not just to care for those who are living with HIV, but all those who are most vulnerable in our society today. There's a lot to learn from the fight against AIDS. The stigma, fear, and struggle for health and social justice remains with us today. But thanks to the work of organizations like the National AIDS Memorial and the AIDS Memorial Quilt, we continue to share the stories from the AIDS pandemic as a way to teach future generations and help us to avoid the mistakes that take us backward, not forward. That's why 25 years ago, during the darkest days of the AIDS pandemic, I was proud to sign legislation that made the 10-acre grove in Golden Gate Park our nation's first memorial to AIDS. It's also why, when I was president, we welcomed the quilt onto the National Mall to share the stories on each panel, to ensure that our nation understood that each 3-foot by 6-foot section represented a precious life lost, and that we couldn't rest until there was a cure. I remember that day so clearly, looking for the names that I knew on the quilt. It's still been far too long, and why today all of us gathered for this virtual observance must renew our commitment to ending AIDS once and for all. It will require the dedication of all of us, and while the challenges we face are still daunting, if we come together and keep going forward, we will prevail. Thank you.
Back in the mid-'80s, people had their entire address books wiped out by AIDS. The impetus for the AIDS Grove itself was there was no place for people just to gather and support each other. Gardens in and of themselves, our nature is very healing. People just needed somewhere to go to feel they were with others suffering like them.
There are many ways in which the epidemic came into our communities, but in all ways, we were touched and connected. And for me, the beauty of that is that those names connect with each other in a very permanent way.
When I'm here, I feel Kathleen is here with us. The Grove needs to be around forever. a place where people can come for losses of any kind, and we all face loss.
I look at its future as a place for everybody to remember the human suffering that took place, and it's not over. Even after a cure is found for AIDS, it is critical that we never forget the tragic stories of discrimination, as well as the courageous stories of countless individuals. This is not only our legacy, it's our responsibility.
How special that was to hear from the voices of a number of individuals that helped make this place possible. I would like to welcome you to this year's World AIDS Day National Observance on behalf of the National AIDS Memorial. My name is John Cunningham, I'm the Chief Executive, and I'm a man living with AIDS. I think it's important as I stand here in this memorial that we call forth and remember that this land is originally the land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. It is those people who are the originators of this space and this land. It is their spirit that we call forth today. I find it important and meaningful that the spirits of the AIDS crisis and those that have gone are combined with the spirits of the Ohlone people, for we both are fighting for justice. A memorial is about so much more than the names engraved within stone or the panels of a quilt that are lovingly stitched together. A memorial is about memory. Memory is about never forgetting, and we never forget through telling stories. Today is an opportunity for us to pause and to reflect and to remember not only a loved one we lost, but also the tragedy of HIV and AIDS. This year, we will be featuring a number of different conversations which will showcase the stories of different communities from the past to the present, and then also looking to the future for our young leaders. One of those conversations will be a conversation with the creators, producers, and cast of the brilliant series Pose. Pose, rooted in the 80s, brought to the fore the story of the ball scene in New York City and the tragedy that befell them, but also, and importantly, it shared the story of what it means to be a community, friends, family, and how love can help us persevere. We will be honored to share that story as we honor Pose with this year's National Leadership Recognition Award. Before we begin our formal program, we will hear some messages of hope from current leaders on the front lines who are fighting to ensure that HIV and AIDS ends up in the rearview mirror. It is now my great honor to introduce a friend of the memorial, our leader, our speaker, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
Hello. As House Speaker and a proud San Franciscan, it is my honor to bring warm greetings from the United States Congress to the National AIDS Memorial's observance of World AIDS Day. I'd like to extend a special thank you to your Chief Executive Officer, John Cunningham, who has been a long-time champion in this fight. And I salute the entire team at the Grove, who has worked relentlessly over the past 3 decades to build and preserve this hallowed space to remember the loved ones we have lost to HIV/AIDS. This year, Americans marked a solemn milestone, 40 years since the discovery of HIV/AIDS, a vicious disease that has inflicted nearly unparalleled anguish, pain, and devastation. At first, the virus did not have a name, only terrifying symptoms harkening back to the Middle Ages. And as we know all too well, San Francisco was ground zero. Early on, many of us were going to several funerals a week. But out of darkness and despair, our community forged healing and hope. As your representative in Congress, I'm so proud of the work we have done together over the last 4 decades. With a quilt, a stunning display stitched together the stories of those we have lost, which I proudly helped bring to the National Mall. And then working with John Cunningham, Cleve Jones, and our beloved John Lewis to return to its original home in the Bay Area. With the Grove, we built a source of comfort and a space for remembrance as the only national memorial to those we have lost to AIDS. And with the powerful voices of advocates and survivors, we rallied the nation behind bold action to end this epidemic, from advocating PEPFAR and the Global Fund, the Ryan White Care Initiative, a community-based care model adopted from San Francisco, to the Housing Opportunities for People with AIDS program, to the essential protections of the Affordable Care Act. On World AIDS Day, we honor the millions of beautiful souls stolen by this vicious virus. We salute the extraordinary resilience of those living with HIV and AIDS, and we remember that there remains more work to achieve our achieved dream of AIDS-free generations. Despite our remarkable progress, our nation still loses 13,000 Americans every year to AIDS, a toll that breaks our hearts and continues to demand urgent action. So today and every day, let us renew our pledge to finally send HIV/AIDS to the dustbin of history once and for all. Sadly, this year, our Bay Area community lost a true warrior for this cause, our dear friend Jim Hormel. When the AIDS epidemic descended upon San Francisco, Ambassador Hormel called out on our conscience and rallied the city to help our suffering neighbors. Indeed, his work served as a model for the nation on how to defeat HIV/AIDS and improve the lives of those affected. We miss him dearly. We last saw him at the Grove, and in his spirit, let us carry on and finish this fight. Best wishes for a wonderful celebration.
Greetings on this World AIDS Day. Our country is made better every day by ordinary Americans like you, banding together and forging a path toward a better and brighter future for others in our community. And HIV/AIDS has afflicted many underserved communities, especially the Black community, and taken too many of our friends, our family members, our neighbors over the last 40 years. It's an issue I've worked on for years, and though we have made great progress in treating and making it possible to live with HIV/AIDS and destigmatizing the disease, there's still a whole lot of work to be done. HIV/AIDS rates are still significantly higher for Black and Latino people than any other group, and this is particularly true in the South. According to the federal government health statistics, in 2019, Black people were only 13% of the American population, but accounted for 44% of new HIV diagnoses. And though Latino people represent around 18% of the population, they accounted for 30% of new HIV diagnoses. Recent data from the CDC brings this epidemic into clear focus. The majority of new HIV cases are in the South, and Georgia has the second highest rate of HIV diagnoses in the nation. These numbers are staggering. And as a voice for health and justice in the United States Senate, know that I'm going to keep fighting to make sure every American has access to quality, affordable health care, no matter where they live. Know that I'll keep pushing to increase the amount of federal dollars that are directed towards vital medical research to help combat HIV/AIDS. And know that I'll always be an ally for those impacted by the silent pain of HIV/AIDS. We may not all be infected by HIV/AIDS, but we are all affected by HIV/AIDS. We're in this together. So keep fighting, keep working, keep raising your voices, keep the faith, and keep looking up.
Hello, everyone. I am Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and I proudly represent California's beautiful 13th Congressional District, which includes Oakland and Berkeley, California. Thank you to John Cunningham for organizing this amazing event today. Every time I visit the Grove, I am overwhelmed to remember everyone we have lost over the last 40 years of fighting this disease. And I'm also inspired by the incredible resilience, strength, and hope that have defined this community for decades. Today, I am even more hopeful that we will reach our goal of ending the epidemic by 2030, and you know I'm going to continue toward that end in this fight. I am hopeful that we will finally end discrimination and criminalization of people with HIV, both around the world and here in our own country. And I am hopeful that we will be able to get the infection rate down to 0, especially in Black and brown communities that are still the hardest hit by this disease. And I want to offer my congratulations to Pose for receiving the National Leadership Recognition Award this year. Your show has helped millions of young people understand the story of AIDS, and telling this story is so important to end the stigma that still prevents people from seeking testing and treatment. Thank you to Pose and to all of our young people who are joining this fight. You give me even more hope that this generation will be the one to finally realize an AIDS-free generation. And of course, you continue to inspire me. So let's redouble our efforts and continue the work to make that hope a reality. Thank you again to the National AIDS Memorial and to everyone participating in this wonderful event.
On December 1st, as we observe World AIDS Day, we remember the more than 32 million people globally, including 700,000 people in the United States, who have died from AIDS-related illnesses, and we recommit to ending the HIV epidemic as we recognize the 40th anniversary of the first reported cases of what later became known as AIDS. One powerful symbol for nearly 4 decades is the AIDS Memorial Quilt, which is part of the National AIDS Memorial's efforts. Since the first names were hand-sewn and stitched into panels as a way to remember loved ones, today the quilt is the premier symbol of the AIDS epidemic and a living memorial to a generation lost to AIDS. May the voices of those we've lost forever live on. Our United States government's theme for World AIDS Day, Ending the HIV Epidemic, Equitable Access, Everyone's Voice, highlights that to end the epidemic, our work must address the health inequities and ensure the voices of people with HIV are central. We must also provide comprehensive access to services, work to prevent new infections, and build on our research accomplishments. The White House is releasing the National HIV/AIDS Strategy, a roadmap for ending the HIV epidemic in the United States. The National HIV Strategy reflects the Biden-Harris administration's priorities to put equity at the center of the response and include a whole-of-society approach. As this year's World AIDS Day theme reminds us, there is work ahead to achieve equitable access to HIV services in every community. We all have a role to play in ending HIV and ensuring health equity. To learn more about the strategy, please visit hiv.gov.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hello and welcome to this year's World AIDS Day observance hosted by the National AIDS Memorial. Gilead Sciences is honored to be a part of this event, one shines a light on the collective work being done in the fight against HIV/AIDS. World AIDS Day is a chance to recognize how much progress has been made and how much remains to be done to create a future that is free from HIV/AIDS. 40 years of fighting against HIV/AIDS has taught us many lessons. At Gilead Sciences, we're applying everything we have learned as we continue to advance new therapies and work towards a cure. We are focused every day on what we can do, both through science and through our efforts in communities across the country and around the world, to help end the epidemic. That includes our commitment to pursuing new treatment and prevention options, like long-acting antivirals. It also means reaching into communities, particularly those most impacted by HIV/AIDS, to partner together to collaborate with allies and advocates so that we address the root causes driving the HIV epidemic, such as stigma, racism, and discrimination. To that end, through Gilead's various strategic initiatives, we are supporting various community-based efforts because science alone will not end the epidemic. You'll hear more about that in one of the discussions today. We'll learn about the impact of HIV/AIDS in the Black community and the role of faith-based leaders and community-based organizations in helping to make a difference. This is just one of several conversations taking place in today's World AIDS Day virtual forum. Each one uses the story of AIDS to address the challenges in the ongoing struggle for health and social justice. For 30 years now, the National AIDS Memorial has been helping to keep the focus on lessons from the past and what we can learn for the future. It does that through its 10-acre grove in San Francisco, the 50,000 panels of the AIDS Memorial quilt, and its educational and storytelling programs. And next year, as the quilt marks 35 years since the first names were stitched into its fabrics, it will be important to continue bringing its power and beauty to communities most impacted by HIV/AIDS today, to raise greater awareness, help educate, and prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. The various solutions derived through active community engagement, through the National AIDS Memorial, and so many other partners across the country are all moving us closer to a future without HIV/AIDS and without stigma. Thank you so much for joining us on this important day. We hope you enjoyed today's conversations.
Thank you, Dan, for those moving remarks. And thank you, Gilead Sciences, for helping to make today's National Observance of World AIDS Day possible. Additionally, Gilead Sciences has helped to support the Pedro Zamora Young Leader Scholarship Program and recently helped us bring our beloved quilt back to the Bay Area. Thank you for all that support. As I said earlier, memorials are about stories. I stand within the Artist Portal. This portal was created in tribute and recognition to those artists lost. It was done through a collaboration of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, as well as other LGBTQ choral and performing arts organizations from across the country. In a moment, you will hear the powerful story of how HIV and AIDS impacted the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. It will then conclude with a powerful performance by the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. As it says here in this circle, ring the chime and speak a name aloud. So with that, I say, Tony Levesque.
On a clear October night in 1978, 100 men gathered at Everett Middle School with the hopes and dreams of starting a chorus. I was there. Two names emerged as possibilities, Men About Town and the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. The second would be a huge risk. You could be fired from most jobs for being gay. Choosing the latter, we emerged as the first openly gay chorus in the world, and 3 years later, we embarked on an extraordinary 9-city tour. On the day we departed, the San Francisco Chronicle heralded the venture. A smaller article on the same page described a mysterious pneumonia found in 5 homosexuals. That mysterious pneumonia soon had a name, AIDS. It became the headline and changed our lives forever.
The deaths mounted and came in never-ceasing waves. The chorus became more than a chorus. It was family. We were there to hold and nurture each other, to serenade and to mourn. We even often wondered if there would even be a chorus when this horrific scourge was over, if it ever ended. The first list of those lost was in our 1988 10th anniversary concert program. There were 38 names. In 1993, we took a photo that demonstrated the number of chorus members lost, almost as many as there were singing men. Those with their backs turned represent the number of chorus members who had passed. In 2018, we reenacted that photo when the number of deaths reached almost 300. That list and those photos provide just the smallest view of the unimaginable horrors to come. They were just a hint at the massive loss of life that would reach over 32 million worldwide.
By the early 90s, it was clear the nightmare we were suffering was not going away. It was out of control. The chorus needed a tangible way for us to make sure that the members we were losing to this terrible disease would never be forgotten. There are 4 voice parts in the chorus. We decided to create something called the 5th section, because the people in the 5th section could no longer sing with us with their voices, but they could stand on stage with us in spirit. In 1991, actor Jeremy Irons wore a red ribbon to the Tony Awards to symbolize activism and awareness of this terrible disease.
So, join us now for a gala evening of stars, music, and awards.
The chorus embraced this concept. We asked a person with AIDS if he would create red ribbons for us. He did so spectacularly with red beaded fabric, which we wore until the ribbons fell apart. We still wear red ribbons today and will continue to do so until there is a cure. As we stand here at the beautiful artist portal to the National AIDS Memorial Grove, we remember a song called Never Ever, which we commissioned so that the memory of these people will never ever be forgotten.